Welcome to Lab 20 podcast. My name is Dennis Iman, and you can see new set, new location, and we're privileged today to be coming direct to you from, I would say, a very beautiful house. I like everything that I'm seeing here, nature-wise, the animals, and just a huge veranda kind of setup. I think this is what we miss in our studio. We want a space where we can be comfortable. We have a very tiny studio. When you watch on our YouTube channel, you would think it's a big space, but it's a really, really tiny room. So this makes it very, very refreshing and everything. So for you that are watching, tune in to our podcast today. We are in Area 3 and we are being hosted as a host, but we're also being hosted at, is it Mr. and Mrs. Ellis?
That's correct, yeah.
That's right.
Your full name is Richard Ellis.
Yeah.
And
My full name is Joyce Gwesele Ellis.
Joyce Gwesele Ellis.
Gwesele.
Gwesele Ellis.
Yeah.
This, I'm sure, is going to be a very interesting conversation. One, because it's one of the conversations that we usually have when we are at the office at Lab 20, but also it's a very common conversation, I think, about around Malawi mainly, when we talk about relationships and the dynamics that are there. And I think for a lot of people, we have now actually been seeing or experiencing a lot of people coming together into relationships when you are people of different backgrounds. And I think with the dynamics now, it's very interesting to actually find out from people that are in that kind of relationship. So welcome to the show, and
Nice.
very happy to have you.
Thank you.
Great. To begin with, can you tell me when you came to Malawi? Were you born here? How did you find yourself in Malawi? I understand you're British.
That's correct, yeah.
All right. So share with me your background and how did you find yourself in Malawi?
Yeah, so by profession, I'm a teacher. So I was teaching in the UK, in Manchester. And I thought to myself, I have a job that you can do anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Why not go and see a part of the world knowing that I have a job that will allow me to do that. At the time, I was single. I don't have any kids at that time, so I thought, well, now's the perfect opportunity. Do it while you don't have those kind of ties.
Yeah.
And really, I didn't mind where I ended up at all, like South America, Africa, Southeast Asia. I was open to anything. And an opportunity presented itself to come to Malawi. And I ended up in Lizulu, in Cheu, in 2008, September 2008. That's when I first came to Malawi, and I was there for 2 years, after which I came to Lilongwe, where I've been ever since. So 2010, I think it was, when we moved to Lilongwe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how did people come to meet each other?
So we met in Lizulu. Obviously, I was a teacher. I was teaching at Lizulu CDSS mainly, but I actually, obviously, most people when they come, like working as a teacher or anything, they come with an organisation.
Yeah.
I actually came independently.
Okay.
So what that meant is there was more. It was more incumbent on me to fill my timetable. So I was doing social and development studies, Form 3 at the time, and then later on Form 4. But that wasn't filling my days. So I started to work in local primary schools as well to help with conversational English, sort of just stuff outside of the curriculum. After having chatted to like head teachers within local primary schools, they said one of the things that would really help, we need to teach the curriculum, which is really helpful, but it would be great if someone would just come in for half an hour with each of the forms and just teach just very basic conversational English that we can't always have time for within the curriculum. So I was teaching in 3 or 4 different primary schools. and Joyce was the head teacher of one of those primary schools. So we got to know each other through the teaching, through the teaching profession, and then that's where we met in Lizulu as a result of coming together, very simplistically as teachers, and also just obviously in a place like Lizulu, you're more likely to cross paths with people.
Yeah.
But you weren't living in Lizulu at the time, were you? You were just outside. You were in the Lizulu zone, weren't you? But
Yeah, I was still in Lizulu zone, but on the Masasa Gromot Road.
Because you go down
called, Yeah. There's a school called Guli as you start the winding road.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was teaching.
Okay.
Heading actually.
I see.
Yeah.
So when you guys met, what was the conversation like? I'm sure that was like your professional setup where, okay, I'm coming to teach, but how did the love story start? What was the initial conversation like?
I guess I probably need to start that, don't I? Given I was the one who kind of initiated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
So, I can remember it very, very clearly. It was like, still, even now, it's kind of crazy. But there was PE training in the Lizulu zone. It was organised by some teachers in the UK. Not any connection with myself. It was just so happened that that they came. There is a small connection, but nothing more than that. So I was happening to speak to a PE teacher at the time, and he was upset because he was not at the PE training. And I was like, how is it? So we're having this conversation about how is it that a PE teacher, I won't name the school, but there, that wouldn't be right of me, but there was a PE teacher from within the zone who wasn't there. So we were having this conversation, and at the same time, down, like we were up, like just up sort of an incline, and then down was the football pitch in the Lizulu, sort of in the secondary school. And all of the teachers from the zones were doing football training with the people who come over, and I kept on seeing this movement in my peripheral vision, constant movement. And of course, you just keep on seeing this thing, this sort of movement. You turn around, and I just saw this ocean of men playing football, and then lots of women stood at the side, very disinterested. And the thing that was moving in my eye was the one woman who was playing football and running around tackling these men.
Yeah.
And it sounds crazy. Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But like, obviously that person happened to be Joyce. But in that moment, I was like, whoa. Like, something struck me. Like, that's not your normal person. That's not your everyday person.
Yeah.
And I was like, sometimes people fall in love very easily. Mm-hmm. I've never been someone who's fallen in love easily. So I start getting these feelings, and I'm like, just leave it, It's just kind of silliness going in your mind. But it wouldn't escape me. Like this thought wouldn't go away. It wouldn't go away. And I also started to realise I'd heard about this one person, this one woman who was a head teacher, and that she was, I'll try and keep it as polite as possible, yeah. Like, just her reputation was golden, and I didn't hear too many positive things about people when I lived out there. Most of the time it was more like people talking negatively of one another.
Yeah.
So it really stuck out to me that this is one of the people that lots of people were talking about, and then I realised it's the same person. Like, this woman that I'm hearing about
is the one that you actually saw.
Yeah, and she was teaching that in a bushy part of like right up in the hills in Lizulu. So like an hour and a half walk from the Boma.
Yeah.
And people were like, hey, this woman, like, she's out there. Like, the community love her, they respect her, this, that, and the other. So when I made the connection between these two people were the same person, then it really wouldn't go away. So eventually, I sat down with my housemate, who was a teacher as well, a Malawian teacher within the area, and I just said, there's this woman, I know you know who she is, like, I've got feelings for her. And he jumped up in happiness, and then I was like, wow, is he just Is he happy because it's like, here's a Zungu, now he's going to marry you? and then he realized, and he's like, look, the reason why I'm happy, he said, let's be honest, you as an Azungu living in this area, you know, it's very easy for you to find a woman. Very, very easy. He said, you've chosen the one woman who's the only person I know who would not take you because you're Azungu. He's like, I'm jumping for joy because you've chosen the right person. You're going to have to fight tooth and nail for her. She's not going to say yes to you because you're Azungu. And I was like, okay. So then he told me what I needed to do. And that's a story in itself. Okay. We can explore that story, but it's another 10, 15 minutes. But like,
I would love to hear that. Because I also want to hear actually her reaction now.
Yeah.
So you have made this decision, you have got this feeling.
At this point, she has no
idea of what's going on. It's you and your
clue.
housemate that have got this conversation.
Yeah. There's no one else that knows.
Okay.
No one else, not a soul knows. None of my other friends in Malawi, in the UK, no one. Because I'm like, this is madness what's going through my head. I'm very uncomfortable with these thoughts because I've not had them before. As in, you know, like, this is crazy, you know. So I'm like, I've got to figure this out. So my housemate, he said, okay, you want to, you know that you want to make something happen. And I'm like, yeah, but I also appreciate I'm in a different world. Like the way things would happen in the UK, it's not going to be the same as it happens here. And he's like, so you want me to help you understand how things work? I was like, exactly. And he said, I'll help you, but you have to understand that if I'm going to help you, you have to do the things that I'm going to say. And I'm like, okay. And I was very happy to say that at the time. And then he's like, right, the first thing you need to do is you need to go and tell her that you're in love with her. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I told you, I'm going to tell you. I'm like, I can't do that. And he's like, okay, if you don't do that, then like I can't help you. Like, you have to tread your own path. Like, I'm telling you, you have to go. And he's like, she will, because she's a principled woman, she will say no. And I'm like, well, that's, like, of course she's going to say no. And he's like, listen to me, like, because I was still in that headspace of like, what are you saying? Like, it's unthinkable where I come from. You know, okay, there's always the exceptions to the norm, but 99% of the population would not even dream of having that conversation. Because it's like, you're meant to like get to know each other first and find out. You
don't just wake up and somebody doesn't know you and you just tell them I love you. And
it's madness. Like I couldn't. Like it's just like, what are you asking me to do, man? Like this is. It was hard. So I'm like, I've got to do it. Like this guy, I trust him. We're still friends to this day. You know, we lived together day in, day out. Even by that point, there'd be moments where he could have thrown me under the bus, and he never did. You know, there were, of course, you know, in a place like Lizulu, as someone coming in from outside, you're going to meet complexities with being from somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And he's one of the few people I felt that, like, this guy, he's going to tell me things as they are. You know, like, so I knew I needed to trust him. So off I went to Guli, because she was the head teacher. She had the head teacher's house. And I got there, and then there was like three of your ex-students from who'd walked from, because she'd moved from one school, which is the one that I'd heard about from, to another one to become a head teacher. And then was it three of your ex-students, 3 or 4 had come walk?
Actually, yes. Like when I left, a lot of people were not happy. So as you can imagine, it was a walkable distance. So some of my students
would still just come.
They would just jump from one mountain to the other.
Yeah, just jump.
Come
It's like a walkable 2.5 hours through the mountain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And
so
back.
I think that weekend we had 3 boys, like teenage boys, who had come to spend the whole weekend with me and my niece. I was staying with my niece then.
And I knew some of the boys as well, because they would come and hang out at our house as well. So I get there and I'm like, my whole mind is just get there, go, I want to fall in love with you, and then run away. And then there's like 3 or 4 boys there. Oh,
I'm gonna do this now.
are you kidding? And I was like, I'm not going until I've done this. Like, this is like, it's, you know, like, I'm so hyped up in my head, and I'm like, I am just gonna wait until they go, because I'm like, I know they need to go. They've got a long walk back. So hours and hours and hours, and eventually they left, and then I sat down, and like the words, like, just to like, I'm like, I've got to say these words, and they're I want to like, and somehow I managed to pull these words out of my mouth. And of course, as my housemate said, and as she absolutely, anyone in their right mind would do so, she said no. And maybe I'll let you step in, because this is the moment where the news is broken.
Like, you're there, you're having your normal day, you know, with these students that are there, and somebody comes up. I know, probably because you knew he was in the area, you were in the same zone, kind of, you had seen him before.
Actually, he had visited my house sometimes, like, because I got to know him. I would say the day after he arrived, we met, but he was too new to even recognize anyone's face. So that was just like hi, and off we go. His housemate was taking him around just to like orient
familiarization
him.
Kind of, okay.
So off that we met some other times, but that was him being in love with mountain biking. It
was mainly football then, wasn't it?
And then football. So and then he started coming. I don't know whether that was after his mind was sort of like seeking for something more. But he was coming, visiting, like sometimes when my school team had like games, he would come. And I remember one time, so was still the school I was heading, I was the only female teacher.
Wow.
So all the others were males. So then one time in the office, one of them was like, is your friend not coming? I was like, who? Richard. I'm like, no. And then I kind of like, because I had question marks. Also, myself being a single woman.
Yeah.
People seeing him now and again coming. You know how things are in Malawi. It's hard to have just a friend of a different, like an opposite sex. So then I was like, no, he's not coming. And then he was like, the way he responded is like, he don't really like he's coming. And I was like, you know, I'm single and I feel like maybe he's coming, people start being suspicious, and that guy was like, no, you Malawian women, how can you not just enjoy like someone's friendship? Like, he's coming out of like his will, you are having good time, just leave it like that, don't think deeper. He's just a friend, full stop. So that kind of like made me think like, I think he's right. Why am I overthinking? Because my main worry was like, people are seeing me with the Mzungu, and if someone else comes and be like, maybe I should try my luck with the Joyce, people will be like, but you know
there's Mzungu.
You know, So that was my main worry. And I remember like completely that day when he came, I tried to like not accept his coming, because he sent a message to say I would like to come and visit you, and I said I'm gonna be going to Lizulu because I've got heads meeting. But that was yes, there was a head meeting, but it was just like dropping some records and coming back. To me, it was just like an excuse
to say.
And then his message was like, chase me away if you can. So got home. He's there. I'm like, anyway, he's here. And what was clicking in me is like, my workmate is said this is it, so I shouldn't be overthinking. So welcomed him. We started chatting, and as he said, he knew my ex-students, so we kind of like played around, like games and all that. And then as they were about to leave, I also asked him to leave. He may not remember, but I said, I think looking at the time, it might be good if you go with these guys, because you are going the same way, so that you have a company on the way. And he said, no, I'm not going. I said, okay. So then the students went, and as I said, I was living with my niece, Estinad, by then, and I don't know what he did, but she kind of like zoomed off to play in the village. I don't know. But when she came back, he said, yeah, uncle said I should go and play. I'm free to go and play in the village. So maybe that was one way of him saying,
space.
can you just give us a little bit of a space? Yeah, and so when we sat down, by then I would say we have kind of like started knowing each other, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we had met several times. He had come to visit. So
it's funny that bit.
Like,
that bit in my memory is foggy because it's just like I was so. It was so intense in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say like when he said those things, I wouldn't say I was shocked because this is something that had come in my mind before, but someone tried to take it out of my mind and say, don't overthink. So then I was like, there we go. And I think I said it exactly what I would have said, even if it wasn't Azungu. Yeah, I said what I needed to say. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I said no with very good reasons. Yeah. Yeah, there were very good reasons.
What were the reasons?
I think the very first one that I can remember is I am one of the 7 children from my family. And if anything, I am seen as a pillar because out of the 7, I was the only one who managed to pursue education up to finishing secondary school education. And with that in mind, by then also my dad wasn't being well, so I was the one looking after my parents, in short. So that was the first reason to say, you've come to Malawi. I don't know how long you're going to be in Malawi for. There will come a time when you're going to want to go back home, but you are looking at me, but behind me there is a chain of responsibilities. So if you are looking for something sustainable, if you are looking for like a true love, I think it might not be possible. So I wanted him to know from the beginning, to know who she is talking to, what's behind her, what responsibilities she have. So that was my first. My second reason was that, as you know, like a lot of Malawians, maybe less so now because I see a lot of like mixed race couples.
Yeah.
But in 2010 or maybe before then, if people see us too, what they would think is me being a prostitute. You are going with this man because of money. You know he's an Azungu, he's got a lot of money. You are going there for money. So in my mind, I was like, if I say yes to him and it doesn't work, people will say, you can't even approach her because she only goes for money, you know. So all those things were like fuming in me. So I was like, I can't hide. I need to say it as it is. So I think those were the main reasons, I would say. Those 2 were the main. And I thought it would be good for him to know that from the beginning, so he knows where he's getting into. Yeah, sure.
So after that conversation, you go back to your friends.
Even though he told me, like, that's exactly what
she's gonna say.
Like, it's so stressful, you know. Like I saw when I was walking back, like some of the teachers.
Exactly,
they saw
the
me
one who told me that you were just there for friendship.
They were walking back because they were up at Masasa, so I was walking up to get a minibus at Masasa, and I was so like just like in a hole, you know, in a dark place.
You feel like everybody was looking at you. It's like,
I wasn't looking. I was just looking at the ground, and I didn't even know I passed them, you know. And then they were like, "Hey, is Rich all right?" And they came to speak.
Yeah, the following morning, because that happened on Sunday, and on Monday, straight away he came and said, "What happened?" I was like, "What?" Richard, like we saw him, he didn't say a thing. He seemed like he's like in a different world. What happened yesterday? So me, I'm also kind of like thinking, should I tell them exactly what happened? And I just said, maybe he wasn't feeling well, you know. He's gonna be fine.
So I got back home and I'm like, you know, I'm just like down in the dumps, And then my housemate is like, I told you that's what's going to happen. I'm like, I know, but blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I told you, just like stop it, like get yourself out of this, this hole. Like, you've done the thing you needed to do. Now she knows. Now is like, you now need to show her that you're serious. I explained the reasons. And I think that was also probably part of it in my head, not only just like how big of a thing it was, that was the biggest thing. But the reasons were good reasons. And there was a part of me at the time that was thinking about staying in Malawi, but I didn't know, so you're like, that is a good argument. It took a few days to just get my head around it and then be like, okay, yeah, like internalize that actually that is what was meant to happen, and now I do need to show that I'm serious. And again, probably my mind's a bit of a blur in this kind of period, but I think mainly it was, it was a two sort of pronged thing, because you said it earlier, I had actually already had my eye on teaching at the school to do that conversational English even before the situation with you came along. And then that just kind of made me go, okay, like I've got to make this happen. This is the way that I can actually do something that is genuine, but B, also get to know this person that I'm having these feelings for. So then I was coming a lot, wasn't I, because I taught there on a Monday, but also I come and hang out, and then I can't remember how long it was, but eventually like I would spend like a night there, wouldn't I? Like nothing, like it'd be like separate rooms, whatever, that kind of stuff. I think that also, I don't know, I'm speaking for you now, but I think that also was comfort for you, wasn't it? That it wasn't just kind of like I was, only looking for one thing, kind of thing. And we, just getting to know each other, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the bit that I can remember that's the biggest clarity in my mind after that is that I got a message from her, and it said something, but it's like, I know that you are a loving man. And that's when I knew that, like, right, this is like, we're going to be together, kind of thing. I can't remember the exact wording of the message, but it was something along those lines. And it was like all this kind of courtship and tension and being a fish out of water, being completely uncomfortable with the whole process, because it is just so different to how it would normally unfold. That it's like, wow, this is happening. This is happening,
Yeah, I remember.
And here we are.
I think I would say, like, the beginning of each relationship is if couples were to sit down and think back of how it happened. Sometimes we just laugh. I remember exactly, like, I had already made my point to say, I'm not taking this path. And I would say almost every time, because of my position of being a head teacher, I usually to go to Lizulu, the zonal office, more often. So each time I go there, sometimes he would have known that I'm there. Sometimes I don't know what was going on. Like the primary education advisor again was, I don't know whether you were friends or whether you hinted anything, but I could see him being like a grown-up man. He knew that something is happening. And I could see, like, I don't know whether I could tell him to say, today we are having heads meeting. Because during the heads meeting, I was the only female head teacher in the zone. So I was just imposed to be the secretary. I would be like that. And I look, he's standing there, maybe having a chat with the pair. I'm like,
it was not hard to find out when she was in New Zealand. So like most of the times when that happened, the thing that I loved more about him, he was very, very respectful. I have had a couple of boyfriends before him, and I would say maybe, yes, I'm comparing him to two, but to me, I think he was very respectful. Like, he wouldn't come in and try to disturb. He would wait until I'm out of that, I'm walking up, and then he would come and join me. We chat along. He like waits until I board the minibus, off I go. So this
weekend, he had a game. I remember that game was in the Zulu, and he said, I'm not coming to see you this weekend because I think he had 2 games. I've got 2 games, so I cannot go cycle back, play and go back. I was like, yeah, no problem. And on top of that, because it now had become a habit that he could wait for me to board a minibus at the bus stage, despite that people were saying all sorts of things, like, you know, this Zulumagi, if you've driven
it's always busy.
Yeah, so they were like, look at her. What is this in Zungu really looking in her? Like, look how thin she is, blah, blah, all those things. And I would just listen and not say anything. He would be like, what are they saying? I'm like, not even tell him. Leave it. So that day, he said, I'm not going to wait for you to board the minibus because I need to go now for the training. And I didn't see any problem. But the moment he left is when I started missing him. Like, Richard, like, waiting for me to... Yeah, you know, I was like, this doesn't feel right, you know. And then I went home trying to brush it away from my mind, but it didn't go. The following morning, being the head teacher, needed to go into the office and update my records. I went in actually 30 minutes. I was like, what have I done here other than thinking of him? Got out, took my books. I was like, maybe I should do it at home. Go into my home, trying to do it. I was like, no. And now what was going in my mind was like, I don't have a boyfriend. He is willing to be with me. I think I would love to have a boyfriend. Why don't I try? So I was like, maybe I'm going crazy. And the place I was staying had limited network. So I had to walk back through the office to the end of the school buildings to message him. So Richard just said, hi Richard, I hope your games are going on well. Just so you know, I'll miss you a lot. And that was it. And few minutes later, there was a message saying, I miss you too. I will be on my way soon to see you. And crazy me, I was like, why did I do that? Now he's coming. Yeah, Richard, but then I went home, I'm like, yeah, I couldn't do anything. He's coming. Maybe now what I should do is do my work, get it done, so that when he comes, we can just chill.
Yeah.
That was my turning point. It sounds so crazy, it sounds so silly, but that was my turning point to be like.
But that was also something Lupia was talking about, at the time. Like, he was like, he talks about how, he put it much more eloquently, but essentially to get into the mind of the person, she now knows that you have these feelings for her. Now it's your responsibility to try and replicate those feelings. That's what you've got to do, and part of that is showing that you're serious, that you're not like some white dude who's going to be here for 2 years and just disappear and doesn't care about the fact that she's got an extended family. Like, you've got to show that actually, that you recognize that you respect that you're not here to just play games. And that was it. That was the easy part, because I knew, like I said it before, I'm not someone who has a past of just falling for women. In fact, my life before Joyce was very much the opposite. I'd led a very happy life, and I'd always been like, if a woman is going to, or a partner is going to come into my life, they need to enrich my life. So I was not someone who was jumping from one woman to another, because I never felt the need. I respect people. There's many people who do need that, and that's cool. But for me, that was never a big part of my life. Because I was like, get up in the morning and I feel good. Don't make things more complicated than they need to be.
Everything's okay.
Yeah. So the fact that this person's now entering into my life, and all of a sudden I want them to be part of my life, showing that I was serious was easy. That wasn't hard, because I was. That wasn't a game.
You talked about people, whenever you're together, and I'm sure a place like Luzulu, you have a white boyfriend or a white person who is always constantly seen with you. People are always saying these things. How difficult was it for you to actually even say, okay, these are the feelings that I actually have for this man, but there are people out there and you know what people are saying. How difficult was it to actually fight all these assumptions that you had in your mind or the things that you knew for sure people were talking about when they see you together?
I would say part of it was a bit difficult, but mostly it wasn't. The reason why it wasn't is because from the beginning, our conversations seemed to be very open. Because the most allegation that people had was to say Rich is married back in UK and he's got some kids. So that was the most allegation. And because from the beginning, I saw him being very, very open. And also a place like Lizulu is easy. Like if he wanted to go with any other woman, he would. And that would also be known from that second. So him being in Lizulu, me being in the mountains, I could come, no one is saying, if anything that people used to say about Rich is like, do Mila, he doesn't just give the money. Sadzakwatila, you know, like he will not get married because like he's not interested in women. So those things with what I was hearing from other people and knowing the place that was happening, that didn't bother me much. However, like, it's still clicked in my mind to say, what if, you know? I haven't been where he's coming from. What if? How would I handle that? So I started like, sort of like preparing myself. But straight away, he also kind of like mentioned to say, my mom and dad now know that we are together and they will come. So I knew that if he is free enough to let his parents know, I'm sure if those parents are good enough, they will do at least whether when they come to see us or when I go, they will be very open to say this guy was married before and he's got kids, blah blah, you know. Yeah, so that knowing the place when those things were happening, I think I kind of like made up my mind. I didn't want to listen much because some of the stories that were coming to me when people started sniffing our relationship were coming from even closer people closer to him, closer to me. So I was like, if I listen too much, there are some stories that could just come because the people don't want you to be together. If there's the truth, I'll figure out as time goes. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And your family. So he has told his parents, and if they say, oh, they will be coming, that means they have accepted. You didn't know their reactions because they are far off. But your family is here. Where is your family this time?
Actually, my home village is Kafele village, Tie Kachele in Dedza, but Dedza not as the Dedza Boma, but we go through the Bunda Mitundu Road.
Okay.
My village is at the border with the Mozambique, on the edge of Zalanyama Forest. Yeah. So my parents, first of all, I was still thinking of like, do I let them know now or do I leave it? Because I don't know how things are gonna be, you know. And also, what I should tell you is that I am the first born daughter in my family, and I have 4 younger siblings. All of those 4 younger siblings were already married. Then, so you know, life in the village, if you are not getting married, a lot of people have got suspicions, this and that.
Talk about,
maybe she's been bewitched or that, and some could even come physically to me to say, why don't you just join Roman Catholics and be one of the nuns? You know, I'm like,
wow.
That's not my side. And was still a few months after we started going together. It was when the last born of our family had a wedding. So I happened to go there when his parents came to Malawi, but that was after we've like spent some days together, and then off they go for the rest of their holiday. So the day of the wedding of my youngest sister, people were like, sort of, you know, mocking. Like they were like pretending to cry to say this is the last wedding for this family. If anything, we're gonna be coming for funerals, blah blah. They were doing that just to mock me and see my reaction.
That the youngest
is now married, but what are you doing? You know. So I went there and I said, hey, you guys, that's silly. If you have enjoyed the beer, the food and everything here, just appreciate. But what you are doing is totally out of order. You've already said it yourself that if you're gonna gather here, it will be funeral. Why don't you just wait for my funeral then? Because I was a little bit annoyed. But so going back to your question, because I was staying with my niece, my intention was to hold it, not tell my parents then, until I was kind of like properly convinced to say I am in a relationship. But my niece now, the one I used to live, was like, I wonder where Uncle Rich gonna go this weekend, you know? She's saying that in front of my mom, my dad, my sisters, and I could just give her an eye and she will zoom off. And then the rest will be like, who is Uncle Rich? Who is Rich? Blah, blah. I'm like, he's a friend. God, same day, next day, similar thing. And then that time I didn't say anything, went back to my workplace. But the trigger thing was like he was going back home. And he wanted me to escort him to the airport in Lilongwe. And that was during the school holidays. I had gone in the village to spend some time with my family. So then I'm like, I can not just say I'm gonna go in town without telling them what I'm doing there, you know. And my niece is still like, Uncle Rich is going back home, blah blah blah. Why? So then I was like, it looks like I've got no choice. I just need to let them know. So after dinner, I told my mom and dad to say I would like to speak to you, and I've got a very strong and good relationship with my parents since I was young. So they were like, okay, what's going on? I was like, nothing bad. I just want to share some stories with you and see what you think. And we sat. I told them to say, I just want to let you know that I'm now in a relationship. And you get to know the person because I'll bring them here at some point. And they're like, oh, that's fine. That's nice. I'm glad. Like, and being parents, they kind of like talk to me, you know, you've looked after yourself all these years, just to make sure you do the right thing, blah, blah. And I was like, no problem. And then it comes the trigger question. Where is this person from? Is he from within Lizud? Where is he from? So I'm like, he is from outside Malawi. Oh yeah, Lizulu is close to Mozambique. Yeah, but he's not from Mozambique. So then I had to tell them to say he's from the UK. And my dad was like, from the UK, is he an Zungu? And I said, yeah, sort of, trying to make it light, you know, make it light. Sort of, they're like, okay. And I could see the tension. My dad wanted to say something. My mom wanted to say something, but they were just looking at each other, but without saying anything. So they said, okay. And I said, by the way, he's going back home, so I need to escort him to the airport tomorrow. And they were like, okay, why don't you go to bed? We can chat about this tomorrow. Why don't you go to bed? So I went feeling nervous, but also preparing myself to say, if they say no, do I have answers? And if they say no, I should definitely ask them why they're saying no, because this is the first time I have come to say.
Well, someone.
Yeah. And now I think I'm now at that age whereby no one would oppose if I'm going out with someone, you know. So I went to bed. And in the morning, I got a knock on my small house. That was mom saying, Welani. So I went to meet them in the living room of the hut they were staying there. And they said, to cut the story short, they said, me and your dad, we kind of like talked for long about what you told us last night. But what kind of like made our mind was to say, both of us were asking each other to say, who made you to accept me? Like, who told you to accept me? And the mom was like, no, it was by my choice. And the dad was also the same. So they said, we are worried about our daughter being in relationship with Mzungu. Yes, we know it's because we can't speak any English, but he's not gonna be with us day in and day out. And to add on that, like it's her choice, so why should we stop her from going ahead? So I was like, okay, thank you very much. And they said, yeah, go ahead. You said you were gonna escort him to the airport. I was like, yeah. Go ahead. Just remember what we told you earlier on. Just look after yourself. Be mindful. You have just started getting to know him, so maybe don't just give in, like, you know what parents would say. So yeah, off I went, cycling 35 kilometers to Mitundu, bought a minibus to meet Richard in the Lilongwe bus depot. And I think we spent a night together. Then I escorted him to the airport. Off he went. I went back home. So that's how my parents reacted. Like, yes, at first it was, but I think they needed it. What do you think?
Yeah.
They needed it. It was a big jump for them. Yeah.
Yeah, like looking at the comments that people were making, and now you are coming to introduce someone, and it's Mzungu.
Yeah.
I think for them, it could have been a lot to just say, okay. Yeah, probably why they did it all night to just discuss and.
Yeah, sure. So,
great. So, when you went back to the UK, then you came back, I'm sure now this is now an accepted situation that, okay, there's
these guys
the two are
together.
now dating and all that. How long did it now take you to actually get married? When did you get married, and what was the marriage process like?
Was it a year? Would I say? A year. Yeah, after some months we got engaged and then started preparing for the wedding. So
was this like a traditional engagement then?
We did because I'm a member of CCP Church.
Okay.
So he had to, that's also one thing that he had to take on, you know? Yeah, because I wanted to have like a proper Christian wedding. So yeah, we did our engagement back in my home village, and even the wedding also happened back in my home village, because that's what I wanted.
Perfect. So you had to go through all the religious teachings and everything that you. Interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And did you have any problems with that? What was like your religious background before that? Was there like any shocks for you to just get into the whole process, Richard?
You okay for me to be open?
Yeah.
So I'm not religious. I don't have a religion or faith, which obviously is probably to most people, when I say that in Malawi, that's quite eye-opening.
Yeah, it's a religious. I think it's a very big thing. I know the guy sitting there. We always have these conversations like, why are people so attached to religion? You ask them, like I don't belong to any church. I think it's now becoming a bit easier these days, I think, with the opening up of the world and also people trying to change their mindset. But I don't like back then, and even when you talk to people like in the villages,
more especially
it becomes very suspicious. Like, what does that mean? Okay.
Like, and it had been a regular topic of conversation before we were together. Lots of people fascinated, but how can you not believe in God? How can you not have a religion? And I'd have many people, weekly wanting to know, but also trying to question me and convert me. Which I understand. Like I get it. But of course, then all of a sudden, I'm now due to be married. My fiance wants to have a church wedding, and there were some question marks because. There was a moment, wasn't there, where there was someone who was wanting to block it because there was someone quite sort of won't say close in terms of relationship, but someone that was quite influential within the area. I don't want to say more than that, but like, yeah, they were letting it be known indirectly that they were uncomfortable with the church wedding because they knew my religious background. So to cut a long story short, it was agreed that I was going to go and speak to them, and I basically said, well, you know, my beliefs have changed. I now believe, and they accepted that, and yeah, we then I was part of the CCAP up to the point that we got married.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was accepted, and then we got married in the church, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. Because I think just from the racial background dynamics that were there, when you bring in the religious or faith card into the equation, makes things even more complicated.
Yeah.
We have like a lot of relationships which are all Malawians, but where church and faith and religious things are involved becomes a hot topic for just a family to start. So looking at that, I'm sure it might have really been not as easy as maybe we could make it look here.
No.
But also
I think it was easy between us. It's more about like for other people.
For me, listening to this makes me feel you were ready to sacrifice everything to just make this thing work. That's how I'm looking at it.
I mean, it makes it sound dramatic, you know, like almost like, but it wasn't. Like it was just like, I don't know. You just, you know, when some things just feel right, you know, like, you know, because the implication of sacrificing something is to give something up. You're not the first person to have mentioned this, but like, I don't feel like I was, you know, it doesn't feel inside me like there was a sacrifice. I mean, like Joyce doesn't ask much of me. It's one of the very few things in our whole time of being together where she was very like insistent, like this is important to me. I want a church wedding. Yeah. Like, is it really that much of a thing to me to have to respect that? I didn't feel that was a difficult thing at all. You know. Yeah. And you know, I knew that like after the wedding, like it doesn't have to be the same as before the wedding in terms of like, you know, my weekly presence at church. I know, like obviously, you know, especially in places like Lilongwe, some people will go weekly, some people never go. You know, like obviously we weren't in Lilongwe at the time, but I knew that like because we talked, that after we were married, like I would not need to be as committed, because I guess that was a bit for me. If it would require me to go week in, week out, going from someone who's, you know, never been like that. I was like, I don't know if I want that. And that was like, you know, she reassured me, like, no, like that's not gonna be a need. That's not gonna be a requirement. And she was telling the truth. So it was easy.
Okay. Yeah. Now, having been married, staying together, you have a daughter who you said just turned 12 yesterday. Was it Wednesday? During the week. Yeah. Your perspectives or your views from your background, grew up in the UK and probably elsewhere, and grew up in Malawi. We also have these perspectives about people from other races and how they grow up. How has your family or your marriage helped you to look at the other races and your perceptions? How has there been any changes, or what could be some of the things that you have learned from your marriage?
Should I start?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, my dad worked in South Africa, so he had an encounter with a Azungu. Right. When he also came back to Malawi, he also worked in a farm in Metundu. He was working for an Azungu. So it wasn't like completely like not having an encounter with Azungu. But then I was very young. So from there we went to live in the village. What we heard growing was that in Evelyn Mzungu is rich when we were growing up. And so, you know, when you are young, you can't filter anything. Whatever you hear is what they have agreed. So you just agree to it. And slowly having a chat, like when I was growing up, I was much more closer to my dad than my mom. Not anything negative, but you can imagine like life in the village, looking after 7 siblings and 7 children, plus the other dependents. My mom was always busy. So if I go with a silly question or maybe like a good question, sometimes if it was to take longer, she would be like, ask your dad, he sat over there, go ask him. So then slowly I started thinking that my dad is the one to go to, so I could go with all sorts of silly questions. And one of the questions I asked him was like, you said you worked in South Africa and the people say all Azungus are very rich. So how rich are they, you know? Just out of interest, but still young. And Dad was like, no, the way we are is the way Azungu people are. Like there are some people who are rich, maybe from inheriting from their family, or there are people who work so hard to make sure that they get out of what the parents or family members have been. And like those things were kind of like coming clear in my mind to say. And he also added to say, Mzungu is a human being, you know? So now that idea of seeing Azungu as someone who have everything, it was out, but knowing that any Mzungu is just like any human being. So I think that was the first clear. And also, when I met Richard, he was very open to say, I'm on voluntary basis. If anything, what I have is what I have been saving. So that was also something that, to me, I was like, if I'm marrying someone who is so rich, I'm just richly coming from the bottom of the rank, this one to feel good, something like that. But I think with his openness, I could see that also with my openness of telling him exactly where I'm coming from, I was like, look, I'm living in this house, but if I take you to my home, it will be a complete different story. And he saw it, he wasn't even shocked that, I would say maybe because he had been in the Zulu or what, but he kind of like felt. It also shaped the way of thinking of the people in my village, because they could see us cycling to the village to visit my family. And to the point of like people on the way mocking, like, this is the most poorest Azungu we have met in life, you know? So I felt good for that, because it was kind of like taking away what people think when
expectations
they see,
that they have when they see Zungu. And like also he's coming to solve everyone's problems.
Also with that, people in my village got to know him when we could go by bike, you know. So they could see him eating what we were eating. He was doing what we were doing. So it kind of like easily some bits that could have been a big problem in the future, like as you said, like expectations. So we went in at a right angle. We went into my village, into my community at a right angle, that the people knew exactly who Richard is, what does he have, blah blah, all those things. So I think it kind of like made things easier.
It also helped me, because I remember I was having that conversation early on, and again, the openness. What is the expectation? I come from a place where nuclear family exists. Now I'm going into a space where there's extended family. What are the expectations? So for us, we sat and talked about what those expectations were. More or less, I listened to Joyce, and to be fair, what she said, I was very comfortable with. So that has always, to this day, helped, because it means that, of course, there are going to be people who try to push those boundaries, but we have the boundaries of what we are comfortable with as a family. So in that respect, that's always been very straightforward. Maybe very straightforward is a bit excessive, isn't it? But I think for me, you have to deal with that more than I do.
All right. And when you go around doing your things, I know there are a lot of communities where you have to hang out with, let's say, Joyce friends and relatives, the black community, and sometimes you have to hang out with your fellow Brits in the communities and spaces. Do you feel like there's disparities there where you feel like you're treated differently because I'm in the black community or because we are in the white community? What's the treatment like from your interactions with different communities?
I've always felt very accepted here. It's interesting because I hear from a lot of, not all, I don't want to paint a brush, but like there are a number of Azungus that complain, this place is racist, and fair enough, there's a lot that don't as well, but I find it surprising. I'd like, look, there's going to be the odd person here and there that isn't welcoming, but like put you on a planet anywhere in the world, you're going to get some people who don't like you. They'll find a reason to not like you. It doesn't matter what it is.
Whatever.
But like by and large, like I have always felt, whether it's her family or friends, I feel very, very, very comfortable and very, very accepted here. It's where I feel the most comfortable. And I think, actually, from my perspective, maybe you've got a different take. I actually have found that that's where we're most accepted. I've actually found that, how can I put it? It's like within kind of like white society, for want of a better term, I don't feel like there's a total lack of acceptance, but I do think that a lot of people could make much more of an effort to understand Joyce. It seems to me, I'm going into slightly controversial fields here, probably not the best thing to do on camera, but anyway, I feel like sometimes when you're in the world here, like obviously I'm living in Area 3, I'm interacting in that kind of world. Sometimes my opinion is that I see that as a Malawian, sometimes it's almost like you're the visitor in that world. You're the one who has to bend and you have to change and you have to adapt in your own country. And that's my take, and it's not an absolute truth, but it's something that I often feel like for Joyce. Like she's expected to be the one who makes a change, and I'm like we're in Malawi. And there are of course people that we have as Zungu friends, of course we are, but I see that there are people who like, I think that when, and I'm biased, but when it's me and Joyce in the room, let's say there's 10 Azungus and there's Joyce, the most interesting person in that room for me is Joyce, because you're actually like, we're all people coming to Malawi, like, aren't we meant to be wanting to know what the culture's like, what life is like here? And often she's the one person that doesn't get talked to in that room of 10, it doesn't have to be 10 people. And I find that strange. And then of course there are other people who do want to know, who are like, she is the most interesting person in that room. But quite often it's like those question marks, who is she? Like, he just come to Malawi to get some woman who can do his cooking and wash his car for him. And like, what? Like, where'd you get that from? Like, you're coming up with these thoughts in the same way that when we were first together, people thought she was a hoolie. That same thought it is there. So for me, I feel more that we're actually more accepted in Malawian society than we are in society outside of it. I don't know what you think. It's not an absolute 100% truth, but I think more often I find that we are both more comfortable within and around Malawian friendships and more accepted for who we are.
Is that the same feeling?
I would say similar, yes. There are moments whereby I completely feel welcomed, like when I'm maybe out of my I will be using the word Malawi zone out of my zone. And like he said, there are also sometimes whereby I would say he's really good, because sometimes he kinds of like make people what do you say, recognize my presence. Sometimes even if we go in restaurant, they'll be like, "Hi boss, table for two," and then they'll greet him, and then they'll rush get whatever and bring and be like, "Yeah, here's the menu." Sometimes it's like, you can greet her, you know, things like that. And people always do have like some assumptions of who they think you are, who they think you can and you can't do, you know. So sometimes, yes, I find it, like he said, that in some cases I'm not completely like, maybe not welcomed, but like when it comes to discussions, like
recognition of this is a family, it's a couple, so whatever conversations.
We've had situations where people are going, "Why is Rich brought his nanny?" Like, why would you even think that? Why would you? What?
Yeah. So that's another thing. Like so like, he said that in Malawi settings we are completely more welcomed, and you know that welcome is for so many reasons.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's like, if I can be friends with this, maybe I can get something from him. He's an Azungu, he's got endless money, blah blah, things like that. But the funny thing, the only thing that I would say maybe my village had got some questions was when we got married. You know, life in Malawi, if you get married today, people will start looking at you tomorrow, like, when is she getting pregnant?
Where's the baby coming? When is the baby coming?
Yeah, goes when. But for us, we agree to say, let's just give ourselves 2 years of just enjoying life and enjoying each other, like preparing for the family, you know.
Yeah.
So those 2 years, like, my parents went through like a lot of like questions. This
why she's finally married,
blah, blah. And also being the first lady married to an Azungu person in my area, it kind of like bring all sorts of stories. We told you, like, an Azungu cannot have a baby with a like akuda, blah blah.
Yeah.
So when people saw me pregnant, then they had also the questions of like, is it really his, or maybe she's been like sneaking out, you know? And when Maya was born, the first thing that people wanted to see is how will the baby look like? Because if the baby you were African, it means that's not his baby. So also then in the village, that dust was settled to say she looks exactly like her dad. Oh, so it can happen. Box ticked. Then I come back in town. People see me breastfeeding Maya. They're like, "Why are you feeding your boss's baby? Why?" You know. So it's like so controversial. But to me, I think I came to the point whereby I was like, you know what? I can't convince. I just have to make it a joke. If I was in a minibus feeding Maya, people are like, "So you just went to get your like your boss's baby from the school, from nursery school?" I'm like, yeah. Why are you feeding them? I'm like, you see, because my boss let me do. That's it. So just making a joke of it, you know, just because I felt like, no, like we can't go along with this. Like I cannot keep, like how many people will I explain? But I think the main thing that I would say might have made Rich welcomed more in my like community is I'm not being boastful, but I'm just kind of like saying it because I've also seen the beneficial in it. Before I met Richard, I was someone whom my community members would come and like reach out, all those things. Someone was it Dream and his friend Lulu have sang a song or like Sifanta. I listened to that song and I'm like, yeah, they're right. Like the way I was then, before I got married to him, is the way I am now. So maybe that doesn't give people reasons to be like, it's Joyce with her Azungu, you know? Like they see
already
us like,
respected you, they know how you welcome them, so, they looked up to you when you were single, alone somewhere before even Richard came in. So
so they haven't seen a big change like in me. Like, if anything, the change has been like, now Joyce is married, now Joyce has got a kid, but it's the same Joyce. We can go and sit down and chat with her. And they also see how welcome Rich is. He's not like, I'm gonna go in the village and be like, where should I sit, blah, blah. Like, so I think those things have also contributed to our like relationship with the community. Because they see me as they saw me before, and they see Richard as someone who have come into my life. And if anything, maybe he's made me better, because if then I couldn't even get a packet of salt for agogos in the village, now I can get a packet of salt and give. And it's not like I do it behind Richard. It's like, oh, I can see that agogo is struggling. How do we help? You got some clothes, maybe we can go and share, you know. So they see us as a couple, as like any other couple in the village. Yeah.
I think when I hear you there, one of the things that strikes me is like the challenges that we face. Like Joyce is there talking about the challenges that she faces from being a Malawian, from Malawians, and then I'm talking about the challenges that I face being a Zungu from a Zungu. So you know, perhaps the challenges are on both sides, but also don't want to dramatize it. Like, those challenges are not big. They're not big. Generally speaking, like people are very welcoming.
Yeah.
Whether it's going to Joyce's village, whether it's being here in Lilongwe, and you know, those small-minded comments, they're there. But for every small-minded comment, there is also an enormous amount of people that have the opposite attitude and approach. And I'm talking about genuine people, not the people looking for something, but people who are just, you know, like I'm part of the Long Way cycling crew.
Yeah.
Like, I feel very, very at ease and very, very comfortable. There are people in the cycling crew who have got way more money than me. Like, they don't need to be huddling up to a Zungu.
Yeah.
So that worry evaporates. They're just people who we share a love of cycling, we go and bike ride with. Like, there's just, you know, let's go and enjoy, let's stop in a tea room, you know,
and just
with
have fun.
With our gulu,
Yeah.
you know, and like, just enjoy one another. Yeah. So there's those spaces, and of course we have Zungu friends as well who are exactly the same, you know. So for every person who wants to put some kind of, like, you know, bad word against you, there are many, many more that don't. And I think it changed a lot as well when we had Maya. A lot of questions.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, before then, is it just like a guy playing around, a woman playing around? Is it a hooligan, a guy who likes hoolies, this kind of stuff? Those questions got answered not only within Cafele, but I think just it changed here, didn't it?
Yeah,
the way that
even in
people
shops,
approach us, because we used to live in area 36, and then we'd walk from area 36 into town, and like we'd go through like area 2, and we would always get like, it was like hard looks. Yeah. And then as soon as like Maya came along, like we weren't in 36 by that time, but of course we'd still walk through town. Some of those people you would know, but others you would see, or they would make themselves known. You guys really love one another. So that changed things a lot as well. Yeah. And then I think, like you asked a question earlier, and I mean I could go on and on about this, but I think you know, what have we learned from one another? We're in Malawi. Like for me, one of the things is going to I'm trying to think of words, because this is something I can go on and on and on about. I'm trying to find some succinct way of putting it. I'm very profoundly affected as a human being by what I see in Malawi. I question a lot of things about the world. I question a lot of things about colonialism and the effects of colonialism through neo-colonialism. I question the capitalist world, and I see how it has its paws and its imprints everywhere, including Malawi, but also everywhere, and how those the ideological ways of thinking that come through those kinds of systems become so societally ingrained. They just become norms. And what I like about living in Malawi is that those norms that I grew up with, if you allow Malawi to open you up to it. They challenge those norms. Now there are many examples, but the most simple example that you've heard me talk about many times, and I always refer to this, is when because it's just an easy one to understand. But when I first came, you know, I would look at like when there was a funeral and like half of Luzulu was shut down for the funeral. I'd be like,
why would you?
Like what? Like you know, all these thoughts in my head. Like people are poor. You're like, now you're going to the funeral. What's wrong with you?
And
like,
you're cooking.
But now, my head's gone completely the other way. Now, I think in the total opposite, because what I see is that's about society, it's about community. In the West, we're constantly talking about community because in many parts of the West, not all, but many, it's been lost because we're too busy chasing money. We've forgotten about each other. So we don't stop. We don't stop to go to a funeral because why are we going? Oh, like, is it your mother? Okay, it's your mother. Go to the funeral.
But
is it your friend? Like, this is serious. Like, if I turn around and said I'm going to my neighbour's funeral, like that better be a bloody good mate. That better be a really good mate of mine, because if it's just a neighbour, people are going to be like, no, you're not going to your neighbour's funeral. Like, what are you talking about? Now I look at that as like that's actually like where human beings are being taken over the pursuit of money. And I'm not saying that people here don't want money. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that there is still something that that is within the culture that still makes people go, I'm going to the funeral. I need to exist, and yet I'm still going to that funeral because it's the right thing to do, and that fabric, that thing that still holds society together. So things like that like really influence me. So where do you see those things in the biggest areas within places like Kafele, outside of the city? Of course, things like that still exist in the city, but most profoundly you see them where they are. So for me, that's where I want to sit. That's where I want to be. That's where my worldview is changing. You know, like every time I sit under a tree, every time I'm in that market area, like I'm observing, I'm watching, why are things like this, why are things like that, and they start to change your worldview.
Exactly.
And they start to help you to understand that there are very, very different ways of being and very, very different ways of thinking. And that doesn't happen if I'm not married to Joyce. And I mean that not only because she's Malawian, but because also if she's walking back to her village and she is distancing herself from people, and she has allowed herself to change, and she's like, I'm wife of a Zungu now, you know, she's got all that. Like, I'm not going to see that thing. I'm not going to be sat down at the market. I'm not going to be sat with people under a tree, because people are just going to be like, you know, because we'll have built a wall.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like a physical wall, a mental wall. People can't come near us. So, like the fact that, like, you know, again, it's not being pompous. Like, both of us have made sure that doesn't happen. You know, we're not there to go to somewhere and show off. You know, like, you want to go back to your village and be with people, be with family, show people that you've not changed just because you're with a Zungu. And I don't want to be walking around like the great I am. I already know I've got a big tag on my back because I'm a Zungu. I don't need to like promote that. You know, like it's easy if I just go and take a big wad of cash. Everyone's going to love me, but like that's not real. That's not real.
Exactly.
You know?
And how does that affect Maya? So, two backgrounds, and at least you're changing the way you see things. The change from UK coming here, getting married here, has changed the way you see things. You already have this experience, and now that is informing how you look at the world from this end. Raising a young daughter with these dynamics, how challenging is that?
I would say there was some time when maybe because we live in town, she would go to the village, because we usually go maybe like almost every month. And she was young, she would just play freely, but there was a moment whereby some started calling her Mzungu. I think she would have been 3 years old, and she didn't like it because first of all she knows she's not a Mzungu, she's halfway. So she could always cry, come back to me, Mommy, they called me Mzungu. And I was like, stop crying, you need to go back, tell them that you are their friend, your name is Maya, and they will like you. And so slowly she used to go. Sometimes, yes, she would, being a kid, you know, you were feeling, my name is not Azungu, I'm Maya. But slowly, like, she started, like, just accepting. But now, no one calls her Mzungu in the village because, one, we go often. Two, she speaks Chichewa fluently. I think that's also one thing that we gave her, that will help her for the rest of her life. You know, some people, like, they'll be like, we live in town, so we don't want our kid to be speaking. Like if a kid is speaking, it to the point where people will be like, why do you speak Chichewa to her? I'm like, yeah, I'm her mom, like, you know. So I think we've given her the tool to like justify the belonging, like so that she, when she's in the village, she speaks
she's
Chichewa,
okay with
she's
everyone,
fine. She wanders around, like, we don't even have to be like, where is Maya, isn't it? She goes, she's got cousins, uncles who have like small shops. She goes there to help sell. Like, she would come back and be like, can I have 2,000 kwacha, I need my lunch. Off she goes. So she's very free. And I would say the choice we made, knowing that we want to be part of the village, I think we made the good choice. Yeah. So yes, she sometimes, some people, like, more especially when we go maybe in the areas where they're not familiar with her, they'll call her Mzungu, but then they'll be shocked that she's speaking fluent Chichewa, and then they're like, okay. So I think the language itself makes people set, like, kind of like made a decision quicker to say she's just one of us.
I think it's also that freedom as well. The language is a big part of it, but also, you know, if we're being free, then she's more likely to be free as well. So the fact that, like, you know, she is down the market with her uncles, with her cousins, it just changes the way that people will perceive her. Because if she's speaking fluently in Chichewa, but all she's does is sit in a house and doesn't associate with anyone, then people will see her as a Zungu. But I think the fact that she's even freer than at least me, she is. You're right. Yeah, I think that has a big part of it as well. And long, you know, obviously she's 12. Hopefully that continues. That's for me. That's one of my biggest things as a parent, and you know, to like keep in her. She's very conscious of the fact that like when you go to a village, there are no walls. You know, there are like you're like, there's more of a freedom to be able to move from one place to another. So I know for many people, they value these walls. People want these walls. It's a sign of you've made it somewhere, and I get that. But also, you know, there's something about having these walls, like you're separating yourself. Yeah. So she's aware when you go and walk out into that village and there's barely any walls anywhere. Yeah. You know, you're not having to, from a kid's point of view, mum and dad don't have to drive you to your friend's house. You can just go and walk down and hang out with them. Like, that's great. That's freedom, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's very interesting. I know there are other things that I would want to explore, but we might not have the luxury of all the time with the recording and all that. But if there's one thing, as we conclude this conversation, that probably has shocked you on your own and also on your own about the other culture, what's that thing that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, from your marriage, like, oh, I didn't expect that, like, oh, okay, just because you're coming from a different culture, and it's okay for that with the other culture. What's that thing? Let me start with you.
You would have started with him. But anyway, I will start. I think for me, something that comes straight into my mind is the difference in work expectation when it comes in homestead. Yeah, I grew up knowing that I'm a Malawian girl. I need to be working hard in the kitchen. I can have the profession, but if I don't know how to cook for my family,
then things won't be.
Yeah. So meeting him, and then he's like, yeah, if we get up at 8, we can clean the house together. We can do this together. I'm like, really? He gonna mop? You know, at first that was my question, and sometimes I would sneak out and clean the house. He gets up.
Sometimes.
Like, what have you done? We have to do this
all
together,
the time.
you know. And if there's like a common argument that we have is like the big fight, the biggest fight had been like because of my love of cooking. And his love of also cooking.
Are you sure I love cooking?
Like, you love cooking, but I just don't give you enough time. So
that's the problem. I love cooking, I just don't have enough time.
That has been the problem. Like when I met him, I didn't know that in their culture, it's more or less the man who gonna be in the kitchen cooking.
That was just about family, it's more just about like sharing it.
Sharing. So I think that was something that I didn't know, and so if had it been that maybe we have had an argument that could have gone to Uncle, a complaint, a main complaint would be him to say, I think she's not giving me enough time in the kitchen. Okay. So but I've learned, and so I think that is it. It sounds silly in the eyes of Malawians, but
because you're
it's
expected to go
big,
home,
you know,
put
it's
his bed.
But again, it's the tension that exists. So if she's not doing that, she's gonna be told off by people within Kafele. And on my end, if like I remember one time early on, she snuck out, washed the car. And then later on in that day, I've got our neighbour storming into the house, like having a go at me, like, why are you treating your wife like that? Why are you just letting her clean the car? So you've got, from my end, you don't do that. So that's where two cultures just don't meet. Like, I'm expected to help.
Gosh.
Now, the thing is, we found our own way. Like, ultimately, we've had to find a way that works for us because we're not going to appease everyone. Yeah. If we do things equally, she's going to get a mouthful. If we don't do things equally, I'm going to get the mouthful. But I think the thing that like was also quite revelatory to me is when you sat with me and said, look, this is how I've grown up. Number one, but not only that was obvious, but like for you as a young girl. That was a thing that people really positively identified you for. That's what separated you from not only people around you, but your sisters. Like, not all of your sisters, but some of them. Like, you were the one who would work the hardest. You're the one who would do that. Like for me to come along and just turn around and go, change everything. Like, at first, I had it in my mind, and I think a lot of people do within the West, that women in other parts of the world, like Malawi, are oppressed. And when women are oppressed, it's like they're waiting to be freed from that oppression. And like, for me, I've grown up in a world where it's like men and women are supposed to do your bit. And I chose my words very carefully there, supposed to, because even in places like the UK, even though that's supposed to happen, sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. So it's not like you would go to the UK and you would just see families where everyone's sharing the responsibility. That's not the reality, but there is, more examples of that. So I think for me that was quite a moment that I had to sit down and recognise that like it's not as simple as just to say this is an oppressed person. This is actually someone who's grown up and is seen in a positive light because of that. And I can't just turn around and snap my fingers and say change
there.
And I think one of the things that was a big moment, but also things have changed recently, but up until very recently, like there has also been the fact that I've been working 5 days a week, and for you're working a couple of days a week. So you also said that in order for you to feel fulfilled and feel like your contribution is happening, you don't feel comfortable with me coming back and cooking and whatever. Now, again, when I say that, especially to people from my own culture, they think I'm just having a laugh. They just think I'm, like, yeah, you're just taking the easy way out.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a lack of understanding. Like, it's a real thing. It really is like you have to, ultimately, when you come from different places where you know that whatever you do, one of you is going to get criticised, the only thing you can do is figure out what works for you as a family, and that's what we've done. And actually, I think we've found peace in that, haven't we?
For sure, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. And if you have anything that you'd want to say to somebody who is considering or is having a tough time to just make a decision that I can date a person, probably somebody is asking them out and they feel like, I don't think it's okay to date somebody from a different race, what could your advice be?
I think the first thing that I would advise them is to say they should go in because of love. That's the very first advice. Go in that relationship because you love that person, despite whether they are white, whether they're from which or whatever country. Go in because of love. Secondly, once they're in, people will talk, but they should know what they're doing. Because if they're gonna start listening, they will miss the path that they're taking. Yeah, people will talk. Whether you are dating a Malawian, you are dating a fellow Malawian or someone from wherever, people will talk. There is no relationship where people will be dating and come to the point where they get married without having stories. I think that would be the biggest advice. Yeah.
And do you, Rich?
Similar, really. Yeah, I think sometimes we overcomplicate things as human beings. Like why what is it that brings people together? So, yeah, it should be like if your motivation is something else, like it's going to come crashing down. Simple as that. And I think isn't that just a universal truth anyway? Like I know some people will listen to this and scoff at it. Fair enough. Like if that's not your thing, but look at relationships that last a long time and that are healthy. There's love there. There always is. So whether someone's wealthy or not, like that should be, a secondary thought. Like I really do think that, and that might to many of the listeners seem naive, but you do have two people saying that, and we're both coming from very different socio-economic backgrounds.
Exactly.
So there must be some sense in what we're saying.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. This felt like 20 minutes chat, but we've been sitting here for 1.5 hour plus.
Yeah.
And
Blimey.
I'm sure that this conversation is something that when people listen to, they will say, oh, we now understand maybe the misconceptions that they have had and whatnot coming from you people that have this experience. It's gonna clear some of those misconceptions and also just help someone. And thank you so much for opening your house so we can come in and have this conversation. I loved every bit of it. It's something that I would want to personally keep having and learning from everything else that maybe we haven't been able to tackle in this one sitting.
Cool.
And whenever you have some time, like you just want to have a conversation, I know from just sitting down here, you have remembered like a lot of things that maybe you haven't had time to like really just think about, or the memories of how you made and everything. So we could have like probably left out a lot of other interesting things. But if those happen to pop up in your conversation and you want to share, give us a call. We can sit down and have another conversation, whether it's just themed on one specific issue and whatnot. But it would be a pleasure to sit down with you.
Thank you.
Sure. No, for those of you that have been watching this conversation, we're sitting with Mr. and Miss Ellis, and it's really, really our pleasure to have sat down with them. Before we close, do you think you have anything that you'd want to say to the viewers?
Yeah, I think from me, I'll just say thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe and help these guys bring you more interesting stories. So thank you for watching.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. And if there is anyone, as you just asked, who's in a similar situation that and those questions are being asked, like hopefully you've had some questions that have, some of your questions have been answered. Hopefully that's been helpful to you. And even if not, I hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the Toba. I love Toba. And the fact that we got Toba, which was the list that maybe the boys were expecting to get.
That is the reason why I married this lady. The best Toba maker.
Now the fact that you queen. It's the most amazing Toba I've actually taken in the recent years.
It
is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the best Toba I've ever had.
The formula
she told us, she was like, this house is Neverland of Toba.
Yeah.
And I know where to go every time I want to get some Toba.
That will be the
end of the marriage. So there's no any divorce coming soon unless Toba is not in sometime. No, thank you so much, Vincent. Thank you so much, Miracle, for making sure that we capture this amazing conversation. And to all of you that have been watching, remember to subscribe. If you have any questions, drop the comments and we'll be able to do a follow-up on any questions that you have. I've been your host, Danny Siman. Until the next episode, thank you so much, and we're out of here.
1, 2